Big dog, I turned Red Dragon Archfiend into a budget meta Yu-Gi-Oh deck. All it took was one card from Battles of Legends Terminal Revenge. Red Lotus King Flame Crime is such a crazy good Yu-Gi-Oh card. It completely changes the complexity of the deck and turns it into an absolute powerhouse. So much of a powerhouse, your boy even took it to the Las Vegas Regionals, and I gotta tell you, I could have got my invite, but I already got my invite, so let somebody else get it. Through my strenuous testing against some of the top players in the entire world, I'm gonna be breaking down what I play for this Red Dragon Archfiend deck and why it's so powerful against the top decks in the game for being a deck that is incredibly cheap. Let's go ahead and jump on in. All right, big dog, before we get into this video, I have a crazy cool announcement to make. The new Raven Wing version 3 sleeves are finally out, and boy, those sleeves are banging. I am incredibly proud to announce that we have teal, pink, and white as the new colorways. These sleeves are the best creation that I've ever made, and I'm excited to share them with the world at a competitive price. So go ahead and go to TheCaliEffect.com and pick up your sleeves as well as your mats today. I really do appreciate the support. But jumping into the profile, I want to talk about how Red Dragon Archfiend is actually built to be able to compete into the meta. One particular advantage that this deck has over so many others is its one card combo capabilities. Just like powerful decks like Snake Eyes and Tenpai Dragon, Red Dragon Archfiend can make a blowout combo with just one card, and being able to maximize on getting to that card is very important, just like all those strategies do. So with this profile, I decided to play 11 one-card starters in the form of 3 copies of Soul Resonator, 3 copies of Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper, 3 copies of Resonator Call, and 2 copies of Crimson Gaia. Now, the best thing about this is that anytime you sit down and play against your opponent, you have over an 80% chance of drawing at least one of these cards. And an even better thing about this situation is that if you draw multiple copies, these cards can serve as extenders too. And one cool thing I want to talk about is that I'm playing 3 copies of Stone Sweeper instead of 3 copies of Crimson Gaia. And the biggest reason is because Stone Sweeper is actually a pretty good extender. There is going to be quite a few times where your Soul Resonator, your main card, gets negated. But fortunately enough, some of the best decks in the game, like Tenpai Dragon, Snake Eyes, and even Yugioh, play field spells, which means you can freely summon this card to your side of the field. Through the event, it actually came up so much that we can summon Stone Sweeper or use its effect to be able to search a tuner, and since Crimson Gaia is actually searchable in itself, technically you have 13 starters, but I digress. But some of the other cards that can be searched through these cards can actually propel you forward through your combo if your opponent decides to stop you. That's right, big dog. It's actually really important about your optional tuner monsters, and I decided carefully when I picked out 2 copies of Vision Resonator, 1 Crimson Resonator, and 1 Synchron Resonator. The theory behind this lineup is that Vision Resonator can get you into your Crimson Gaia, so like I said, you technically have 13 starters inside of your deck, but Crimson Resonator is the best one because it can summon these 2 monsters from your deck. Synchron Resonator can be used over and over again to recycle your Resonators back from your graveyard to your hand, but also as a level 1 tuner monster to help you synchro summon into some of those awkward monsters. It's essentially the perfect harmony of Resonator monsters while limiting the bricks that you could have inside of your deck. I genuinely wanted to be able to keep that in mind when you're playing against some of the top decks in the game, as those strategies have almost 0 bricks inside of their deck as well. So in order to be able to compete with them, we have to mimic a lot of the things, and that's something that this strategy can do really well. Speaking of mimicking, just like the top decks, we play extender cards that allow us to be able to play through our opponent's combo, and this may surprise you that I played 3 copies of Red Lotus in the deck, 2 copies of Bone Archfiend, and 1 copy of Obsessive Yugioh. Now, in most builds, players will play 3 copies of Bone Archfiend, and I don't think that it was incorrect to play 3. But if I'm going to keep it so real with you guys, Red Lotus King Flame Crime is the best extender in the deck. Not only is Lotus King a perfect complement to Soul Resonator, it also allows you to get into your win condition by sending a normal trap card from your deck to the graveyard. I also think people underestimate the value of Red Lotus King Flame Crime. The best thing is that it can send any normal trap card from your deck to the graveyard. So throughout testing and during the event, I was playing the Black Goat Laughs. The Black Goat Laughs is almost a turn ender for Tenpai Dragon. All you have to do is declare Tenpai Dragon Tundra, and they won't be able to play the game essentially. Unfortunately though, the card did skyrocket in price, but to be honest with you, you don't need to play it. For the event, I was playing the card for its versatility, but I don't think it's an essential piece. You could play a card like Rise to Full Height, which almost guarantees that you don't lose in a matchup like Tenpai Dragon, and against other decks can stall you for another turn. And then there's a couple of other spicy Yu-Gi-Oh cards that you can play inside of your deck, but I'll discuss those a little bit later. And while I do still think that Bone Archfiend is a very good card for the deck, I think that Red Lotus King offers a little bit more and gets us into our win condition. Speaking of win condition, let's go ahead and talk about it. We run one copy of Red Rain. To be honest with you guys, I think that Red Rain is the reason why this deck is so good. For the people that do not know, this card says, if you control a level 8 or higher synchro monster, banish all monsters on the field except the monsters with the highest level. And then from there on out, the monsters with the highest level are unaffected by card effects. This card also has another ability that if it is in your graveyard and you synchro summon, you can add it to your hand. And this is simply why I think that this is one of the best budget Yu-Gi-Oh decks in the game. Red Rain is an absolutely busted Yu-Gi-Oh card that can now be searched by synchro summoning with our Flame Crime King. I've tested this against the top decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! If you play your cards right, the only way a deck like Snake Eyes can beat you is the effect of Solomon Great Raging Phoenix in Graveyard. Just don't let them get that far. And coolly enough, we do complement Red Rain with Red Zone. Another great thing about Red Zone is that oftentimes you'll banish your other monsters, but Red Zone can bring that monster right back, which pretty much means that you didn't lose anything with Rain. But even if the 11 starters in the deck and the ability to play through multiple hand traps wasn't enough for you in this deck profile, I have one more thing. This deck can play 19 non-engine cards. That's crazy. So with that being said, there's 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Effect Veiler, 3 copies of Ghost Mourner and Moonlit Chill, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. These simply are the best hand traps in the game when it comes to stopping Snake Eyes. And the biggest reason is because if you open 2 monster effect negation cards, you're pretty much on the roll. You can easily destroy those decks just by stopping the Diabell Star and the Snake Eyes Ash. It puts them in a situation where their boards are very easy to break, meaning that you can OTK on the crackback. But just in case, I decided to double down with 3 copies of Nibiru the Primal Being. With 15 hand traps in your deck, you have a 60% chance of drawing at least 2 in every starting hand. That is huge. It means that regardless if you're going first or you're going second, you're gonna have at least 2 interruptions. Really, really important that I say at least 2, because you're almost guaranteed to have at least 1. And if you get through with your combo, you're guaranteed to have at least 5. The deck is just so well built to be able to beat some of the best decks in the game, and I even follow it off with a little bit of spice. Finishing up the deck list, we play 1 copy of Call by the Grave and 2 copies of Crossout Designator. I decided to cut a Crimson Gaia and a Bone Archfiend for 2 copies of Crossout Designator, and my biggest reason to do this is because these particular cards can be extenders in the right situation. But the only time you would need an extender is if you get hand trapped. And seeing that the deck plays all of the hand traps that would be good against this deck, you could just stop your opponent from stopping you. If you wanted to, you can also cut the Black Goat Laughs for that 3rd copy of Crossout Designator, and that means that you have 4 disruption cards alongside of multiple extenders inside of your deck. You should be able to perform any type of combo that you want, and a lot of times you will be able to go unhindered by your opponent. Now, the quick Q&A time. You're probably wondering why I'm not playing certain cards. For example, the Bestial monsters. In this current Yu-Gi-Oh format that we're in, the Bestial monsters are okay. I think they're better regulated into the sideboard, but if you want to go against the best decks in the game, you actually have to play cards to beat the best decks in the game. Unfortunately, Bestials are not one of them. Another thing you may be wondering is why I don't play a Centurion engine. I've seen that people have made the Centurion engine really popular and they swear by it because it makes a bigger combo. And I don't mean to flex, guys, but as a person with multiple tops, goddamn, I really am a dog in the game. You can't see all of these tops. The Centurion engine makes your deck stronger. It doesn't make your deck more consistent. If anything, it makes your deck weaker in that aspect. It adds more bricks inside of your deck while not necessarily giving you anything unless you are able to complete your full combo. And to be honest, if you can complete your full combo, you win regardless. Unfortunately, this Yu-Gi-Oh format is all about a few things. How many disruptive cards can you play inside of your deck? Is your deck one of those decks to be able to play multiple one-card starters with a supporting cast to allow you to extend past hand traps? And do you have one of the most broken cards in the game? And while this may not be the only version of Red Dragon Archfiend that can check all of those boxes, this is one of those versions that can, and on a budget. I don't think there's a single card inside of this deck over $3. That's cool. Now moving over into the extra deck, I may just have to break that promise, or maybe not. There's 2 copies of Red Dragon Archfiend, 2 copies of Scarred Dragon Archfiend, 2 copies of Hot Red. In this particular version, you actually do summon this card a lot. 1 copy of Red Supernova, 1 copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane, 1 Scarlight, 1 QE Belt, 1 Void Ogre, 3 Red Rising, and the card that is really expensive right now, Bestial Dispatcher. Now there's a really cool thing about Bestial Dispatcher, and this particular version, if you guys cannot afford the card, you don't need to play it to be successful, which is incredibly crazy. Most Red Dragon Archfiend decks need this card, but the most important card for this deck is Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Holy crap. Because the deck relies more on Flame Lotus Crime King, you can actually just summon Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, search your Red Rain, set it in pass, and with a 60% chance you have at least 2 hand traps, that's 4 interruptions and the ability to be able to wipe your opponent's board. What do I play instead of Bestial Dispatcher? Well, ironically, you can drop the Black Goat Laughs and the Dispatcher and play Centurion Auxilia. Now keep in mind, I didn't say that the Centurion cards were bad. I said that they increased the ceiling without giving you much consistency. And while currently I'm still against playing a full Centurion package, I actually do like playing the 1 trap card Centurion Phalanx as opposed to playing that Black Goat Laughs. And the reason why is because there's a ton of times where you can Synchro Summon into 12, but you can't make Red Supernova. You can then Synchro Summon into Auxilia, search the Phalanx, which can banish a monster on the field. Also, if you draw the Phalanx by itself, it's a disruption. And then another cool thing is that you can send it to the graveyard with your Crime King to summon back Auxilia in case you need another monster. So budget players, if you can't afford Dispatcher or Black Goat Laughs, do not worry, I got you covered. That Crossout Designator, the Centurion Phalanx, or even just playing those cards if you do have them are all decent options. But I bet you're wondering, what is the Super Omega Ultimate Combo? I'm going to show you 2 in this video, and I'm also going to be putting test hands on my Patreon as a special thank you for helping me pay my editors. Okay, big dog, so combo number 1 will literally blow your socks off. This very, very simple combo is what I've been doing against some of the top decks, and they simply can't beat it if the combo pops off. If not, you still have extenders to be able to keep playing depending on your situation. What you do is normal summon Resonator and use its effect to add your Red Lotus King Flame Crime, and then you special summon your Red Lotus Flame King Crime to your side of the field. Now, I would recommend not using its effect to burn, and it's simply because Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is a card and the 800 damage does not come up. Use both your Lotus and your Soul Resonator for a Synchro Summon into your Red Rising Dragon, and what you can do here is if you're really scared of Ghost Ogre, you can make Red Rising Chainlink 1, Lotus Chainlink 2. If you're scared of Ash, you do it the other way around. So what this particular line takes is reading your opponent and some in-depth knowledge, but if you play long enough, you'll start to get the hang of it. Use your Lotus to be able to send Red Rain, and then use your Red Rising Dragon to be able to summon Soul Resonator. From here, you'll perform 1 more Synchro Summon into your Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, which triggers the effect of your Red Rain to add it to your hand. Now, a lot of times with these 2 cards, plus any 2 hand traps, it normally is the game. It pretty much simplifies the game state to where your opponent can't even use cards like Triple Tactics Talent to take your Hot Red Dragon, because if you Red Rain, it's unaffected, and then you can stop 2 more of their additional cards. And the really cool thing about this combo is that even if the rest of your hand were hand traps, if you draw any of these cards in your hand, which is kind of crazy, you have game. You can literally win the game on the very next turn, which is really, really crazy. All right, big dogs, for the last combo, I actually want to show you a really, really big combo. This is not a combo that I do often. Actually, I wouldn't even recommend doing this combo unless your opponent, or you knew your opponent didn't have hand traps, or if your opponent was wide open, let's say if they have exhausted all their hand traps. But this can be a really deadly combo that could be pulled off most of the times during the game. All you need is Bone Archfiend with Crimson Resonator, and a card to discard from your hand. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna activate Crimson Resonator to summon itself, and then we're gonna normal summon Bone Archfiend, and then we're going to Synchro Summon into 6. The monster we'll Synchro Summon is Red Rising to special summon back the Crimson Resonator. Then we'll use the Crimson Resonator's effect. We'll actually special summon the Vision Resonator and the Soul Resonator to our side of the field. Soul Resonator will then activate its effect. We'll add our Red Lotus King Flame Crime from our deck to our hand, and then we'll Synchro Summon into 9 using the Soul Resonator and our Red Rising for a hot Red Dragon Arch Abyss. Now, here's where the discard comes around. This actually could be an entirely different combo. If you summon Synchro Resonator, you don't need the discard because you'll just add back with Synchro Resonator and discard, but that board is slightly weaker. We will discard that extra card in our hand to be able to summon out our Bone Archfiend, and then we'll use the effect of Bone Archfiend to send Obsessive Yugioh. Now, instead of increasing the level of any of our monsters on the field, we'll actually just permanently increase the Red Dragon Archfiend, which does come up a little bit later. We'll Synchro Summon into 6 again with the Bone and the Vision. We'll summon out Red Rising Dragon, which is not once per turn. We'll use Red Rising Dragon and our Vision Resonator to be able to get Crimson Gaia, and then we will special summon back that Soul Resonator. Because we control a tuner, we can summon out our Red Lotus King Flame Crime, and then we're going to Synchro Summon yet again into a 3rd copy of Red Rising Dragon. Now, I'm not a big fan of this combo because you run through all 3 of your Red Risings, but you do have the opportunity to shuffle one back, and to be fair, if you go through all 3, you're probably winning the game. Use the effect of your Red Lotus King Flame Crime to send your Red Rain to the graveyard, and then with the effect of your Red Rising, you special summon your Vision Resonator. Now we're going to activate Crimson Gaia to search our 2nd Vision Resonator. Since we have not used this effect to special summon, we'll summon it to our side of the field. And since we have 3 tuners in a non-tuner Synchro monster, we can Synchro all of these monsters into our Red Supernova, which I thought was pretty cool. Normally when you do summon this card, you win the game. We can then banish Red Rising number 1 to be able to add Obsessive Yugioh, then banish Red Rising number 2 to be able to special summon Obsessive Yugioh, and then Synchro Summon for 10. The monster we can summon is a Bestial Dispatter, which means in this particular combo sequence, oh, I forgot, you also want to activate the effect of your Red Rain. In this particular combo sequence, we have 2 board wipes. You can use the effect of Red Supernova to get rid of all of the cards on your opponent's side of the field, but when you Red Rain this time, since your Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss is level 10 and your Dispatter is level 10, these 2 monsters stay on the field, are also now unaffected by all card effects except for their own, and you get to banish all cards on your opponent's side of the field. Amazing. And what's even crazier is that during your turn, you can even special summon that Super Red Nova by Bestial Dispatter, and this should be enough to win you the game. But that's all that I got for the budget meta Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck Big Dog. Of course, again, I'm going to be putting those test stands on my Patreon. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. But until then, you can check out some of these others, and I'll catch you on the next one.